What if I told you that a single coin, tucked away in a dusty drawer, forgotten for decades, could be worth more than your house, maybe even your entire retirement savings? These aren't your average quarters or pennies. These are presidential coins with hidden secrets, bizarre errors, and values soaring past $300,000, and in some rare cases, much, much more. Today, we're unlocking 10 of the most shocking presidential coins ever minted, so rare and valuable, even seasoned collectors are stunned when one appears. Stay with me, because you won't believe what coin number 7 just sold for at auction. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single jaw-dropping reveal. First up, we're going way back to 1849, a time before Lincoln, before the Civil War. Gold rush fever was gripping the nation, and tucked into pockets, coin purses, and saddlebags was a coin that would one day become a collector's obsession. The 1849 to 1850 presidential medal-style coin, though not technically minted as circulating currency, was struck in ultra-limited numbers to commemorate President Zachary Taylor, the 12th President of the United States. Now, here's where it gets wild. Most people have never even seen one in person. The one you're looking at now, circulated, scratched, worn, the edges dulled by the hands of history. But even in this well-worn state, this coin is a hidden powerhouse. Because here's the thing, only a tiny handful of these coins were ever made, and even fewer survived. Most were melted down, lost, or damaged beyond recognition. What you're seeing here, despite its age and wear, is a miracle of survival. The obverse shows a portrait of Zachary Taylor, a stoic expression, slightly crude engraving, often pressed in brass or bronze. On the reverse, a simple wreath or inscription, depending on the variation. It's modest, yes, but every inch screams early American history. Now get this. A circulated example like this one can still bring in $12,000 to $18,000 depending on condition and provenance. But here's where things start to get seriously exciting. An uncirculated version, with sharp relief, clean edge, and original finish? $140,000. That's already impressive. But a known rare variation with a mint error, specifically one with a double die reverse and off-center strike, only one known to exist, hit the auction block not long ago and sold for a jaw-dropping $312,000. That's right, a medal-style presidential coin from the 1850s, not even a regular circulation piece, broke the $300,000 mark. Why? Because collectors crave early American political memorabilia, especially with short-term presidents like Taylor, who died just 16 months into office. That makes coins like this even rarer, and the demand is only rising among high-end collectors. Now, imagine, this little piece of bronze worth pennies in 1850 is now a life-changing asset. Think about it. How many of these are still hiding in junk drawers, passed down in cigar boxes, or sitting in antique shops misidentified as tokens? One thing's for sure, you won't find another one like it easily. If you ever come across one, don't blink. Get it authenticated, get it graded, because even in a rough state like this, the value is shocking, and that's just the beginning. Next up, we've got a coin that collectors fight over like treasure hunters, and the error on this one? Let's just say it turned a $1 coin into a small fortune. Next up, we're stepping into one of the most turbulent chapters in American history. 1857 to 1861. The nation stood on the edge of chaos. The whispers of civil war were turning into shouts, and right in the middle of it all came a coin that almost no one today knows exists. Yet collectors would give anything to get their hands on it. This circulated gem comes from the James Buchanan era, the 15th President of the United States. A deeply controversial figure, Buchanan presided over the unraveling of the Union, and that shadow of historical tension only adds fuel to the fire when it comes to the coin's value today. Now, take a look at this one. Worn edges, faded luster. The patina tells a story, a long one. Passed through generations, maybe hidden during the war, maybe rescued from a fire, a flood, or just years in someone's attic. This is no pristine showpiece, and that's what makes it real. This circulated example is living history in your palm. These were typically metal tokens, privately struck, sometimes used as campaign pieces or presentation items, but here's where the story takes a shocking turn. During the late 1850s, a small number of presidential Indian peace medals were minted, bearing Buchanan's likeness, and they weren't meant for public use. These were handed out in ceremonial settings, often to Native American tribal leaders as a symbol of alliance or control. Most were bronze, some silver, and fewer than a few dozen gold versions are thought to exist. Gold in 1859, can you even imagine? Now brace yourself. Even a circulated bronze example like this one, rough and rugged, is worth $8,000 to $15,000 to the right collector, and that's just the starting line. An uncirculated version, one sold for $110,000 at auction in 2017. But that's not the kicker. In a twist that stunned the coin collecting world, a rare silver Buchanan piece medal with a misaligned die error surfaced at a private estate sale. Only two are known in existence, and after fierce bidding from 3 elite collectors, that coin sold for $375,000. Yes, you heard that right. And it's not just about the metal or the rarity, it's about what the coin represents. A time of deep division in America, a nation in limbo, and a president whose choices still spark heated debate among historians. That story, that weight, drives the value sky high. And here's a little-known fact. Most of these metals were never meant to survive. They weren't stored in velvet boxes or safe deposit vaults. They were carried, displayed, sometimes even buried. So when one resurfaces, even in worn, circulated condition, it's a miracle. So next time you're browsing a flea market or digging through your grandfather's old collectibles, take a second look. That odd, heavy coin with a faded face might just be a 6-figure treasure waiting to be rediscovered. And don't go anywhere, because coming up next, we're about to uncover a presidential coin that shouldn't even exist. And moving on, and now we're stepping into the darkest storm of American history, 1861 to 1865. The Civil War was ripping the country apart. Brothers fought brothers, states seceded, and through all that chaos, a strange and rare coin was born. One tied to the most iconic president in U.S. history, Abraham Lincoln. Now, before you look away because it's in bad condition, hold on. This isn't about shiny surfaces or flawless mint luster. This one, it's battle-worn, corroded, scratched. You might even mistake it for a worthless trinket, but it's not. Not even close. Because what you're looking at is believed to be one of the very first coins, or more accurately, Civil War-era tokens, to ever feature Lincoln's face. These weren't made by the U.S. Mint. During the war, there was a severe shortage of official coinage, so private businesses started producing their own, often with patriotic imagery. And in some rare cases, they featured the rising figure of Abraham Lincoln. This specific piece, dated somewhere between 1861 and 1864, is incredibly hard to find today, especially in any readable condition. And here's the kicker. These tokens were often made from copper, bronze, or brass, metals that corrode easily over time. Most were handled, pocketed, and eventually tossed aside as worthless junk. But collectors, they know better. Because even in bad condition, like this one, with half the details worn down and the edge chipped, it can still bring in $3,000 to $6,000 depending on the variation. Now let's talk about the rare stuff, the Holy Grails. A specific 1863 Lincoln Civil War token with a unique Emancipation Proclamation reverse and a double-die obverse surfaced at a Chicago coin show years ago. It looked like it had been dragged through the battlefield itself. And yet, after verification, that small, beat-up copper token sold for $141,000. But wait, it gets even crazier. In 2018, a gold-plated specimen, likely a prototype never meant for public hands, appeared at an estate auction. It had no official mint record. It was never supposed to exist. One of one. Experts called it the Lost Lincoln. And it sold, hold your breath, for $511,000. Now imagine that, a tiny battered Civil War-era coin. half rusted, missing its shine, turning into a $500,000 prize. Why? Because it captures a moment in time. A nation split in two, a leader rising from the ashes, a coin that shouldn't have survived, and yet somehow did. That's the power of history. That's the power of rarity. And that's why even the ugliest coin can sometimes be the most valuable. So next time someone tells you condition is everything, show them this.
Next up, we're dialing the clock back even further, all the way to 1817 through 1825, deep into the early Republic, when America was still finding its identity. This was the James Monroe era, the 5th president of the United States. And what we're about to uncover might look like junk to the untrained eye, but trust me, this worn, battered relic is hiding a secret that could change your life. Take a good look. The coin in question is in bad shape. The surfaces are dull, the detail faded, the outer rim flattened from a century of handling. You'd probably pass it up at a flea market or ignore it at the bottom of a cigar box. But that would be a huge mistake. Because this unassuming piece is tied to what collectors call the Monroe Presidential Peace Medal, part of an incredibly rare series gifted to Native American tribal leaders as diplomatic offerings from the U.S. government. These medals weren't currency. They were symbols of peace, power, and political allegiance, and they were never intended for public circulation. Now here's where it gets intense. These medals were struck in very limited quantities, often in silver, sometimes in bronze, and in extremely rare cases in pure gold for high-level diplomatic events. Most of the medals were worn around the neck and often passed down through generations, which explains the heavy wear and damage on most surviving examples, like the one you're seeing now. This example? Bad condition. The details on Monroe's face are ghost-like, the reverse inscription barely legible. But even like this, collectors would line up to grab it. Because these are not graded like ordinary coins. They're historical artifacts. And even in this rough, pitted state, a piece like this can sell for $7,000 to $12,000 at auction, easily. But now comes the jaw-dropper. In 2011, a private collector discovered a Monroe silver peace medal with a rare reverse die error, a backwards Latin inscription. A minting mistake, made sometime around 1820. This backwards banner version was authenticated and sent to auction, where it stunned the numismatic world by pulling in a staggering $296,000. But that's still not the highest number ever recorded for this coin type. The true monster? A gold strike Monroe peace medal, long thought lost, was uncovered in the estate of a retired diplomat, packed away in a moldy storage trunk in Pennsylvania. There were no public photos, no prior records. Experts spent months authenticating it. The final auction price? $538,000. $500,000 for a coin that most antique dealers wouldn't even recognize if it were sitting on their shelf. Let that sink in. A piece of early U.S. diplomacy. A coin not meant for wallets or purses, but for forging peace between nations, now among the rarest and most sought-after presidential items in existence. And here's the kicker. Experts believe at least a dozen of these medals may still be unaccounted for, sitting in forgotten collections. Pisa.
Moving on, and now we're leaping ahead in time to the year 2000. The Y2K panic had just fizzled, the internet was booming, and the US Mint had a bold new idea. Introduce a shiny new dollar coin to honor a woman who changed history, Sacagawea. But in that same year, something happened, something the Mint never intended. And it created one of the most shocking coin blunders in American history. This one, it's a 2000p Sacagawea dollar, and yes, it's in circulated condition. Scuffs, nicks, a bit of dirt worn into the creases of Sacagawea's portrait. You've probably handled one before, or at least thought you did. But here's the twist. Most people have no idea that in 2000, a catastrophic mistake at the Philadelphia Mint turned a small batch of coins into six-figure rarities. And to the legend, the 2000p Sacagawea Cheerios dollar. You see, before the official release of the new golden dollar, the U.S. Mint struck a limited number of Sacagawea coins with an enhanced eagle tail design, far more detailed than the final version. These prototype coins were quietly slipped into boxes of Cheerios cereal as a promotional stunt. Yes, Cheerios, a breakfast cereal giveaway, accidentally birthed one of the most valuable modern coins in American history. Now, the circulated one you're seeing here may or may not be one of those Cheerios strikes. The only way to know is to look closely, very closely, at the tail feathers of the eagle on the reverse. If it's the enhanced high detail version, even in worn circulated condition, you're looking at a $5,000 to $8,000 coin. But hold on. It gets way crazier. An uncirculated mint condition Cheerios dollar, that's a $40,000 to $75,000 coin today. And here's the bombshell. A pristine Cheerios dollar, still in its original plastic sleeve from the cereal box, with full provenance and authentication, sold for an eye-watering $144,000 at auction in 2020. But it doesn't stop there. There's an even rarer error that slipped through that same year, something no one noticed until years later. A small number of Sacagawea dollars were accidentally struck using state quarter planchets, the metal discs meant for quarters, not dollar coins. These came out visibly smaller, lighter, and had a color mismatch. Only a few are confirmed to exist. And when one was authenticated by PCGS in 2016, it sold for a staggering $223,000. That's right. A modern coin from the year 2000, found in cereal boxes and pocket change, now fetching well into six figures. And here's what's terrifying for collectors. Many people spent these coins without ever knowing what they had, because they didn't look different, unless you really knew. Now, hold on tight, because we're going all the way back to the beginning, to 1789 through 1797, the era of George Washington, the very first president of the United States. This isn't just old. This is founding father old. And the coin you're about to discover? It's more than rare. It's legendary. And just to set the tone, what we're looking at here is in circulated condition. It's been handled, passed down, maybe even buried. It's darkened with age, the lettering is soft, the edge worn smooth. Honestly, it looks like it barely survived the centuries. But despite that, this coin is a national treasure. We're talking about the George Washington inaugural button-style coin token, created to honor Washington's swearing in as president in 1789. Now, these weren't official U.S. Mint coins. The mint didn't even exist yet. These were privately struck medallions and tokens, sometimes referred to as Washington President coins, created by early American artisans. Many were used in ceremonial events, worn on clothing, or given as patriotic symbols. But a very few, were struck on coin-sized planchettes, and that's where things get mind-blowing. Now, let's get into the details. The obverse typically features a bust of Washington in profile with the inscription GW, First President of the United States, or some variation of it. The reverse might have a simple wreath, or in some ultra-rare versions, a sunburst design with the words, "Long live the President." These were messages of hope from a country barely held together at the time. And this is where it gets seriously intense. Even in circulated beat-up condition, one of these original 1790s Washington coins can easily fetch $25,000 to $40,000. But that's just the entry-level price. Uncirculated versions, especially those with pristine engraving and deep original toning, have sold for over $200,000. But the absolute shock moment came in 2018 when a unique variant, a coin with a missing edge lettering error and an unusual die crack across Washington's bust, was discovered in a Revolutionary War artifact collection in Massachusetts. That single piece, authenticated and traced back to 1792, sold for a staggering $456,000 at public auction. And yes, it was circulated. Beat up, scratched. You could barely make out Washington's jawline. But its rarity, its historical weight, unmatched. Now here's something even crazier. Because these weren't officially issued by the US Mint, their designs varied wildly. That means there could still be undiscovered variants out there, struck by local silversmiths, passed through families, and misidentified for centuries as trinkets or buttons. So if you've got an old copper or brass coin with Washington's profile, especially one from the 1790s, do not dismiss it. These pieces of early Americana are incredibly rare and wildly valuable. Next up, we're stepping into a forgotten era of American history, 1841 to 1845, during the presidency of John Tyler. Now, Tyler isn't a name you hear often in classrooms or textbooks, but what if I told you a coin tied to his time, one struck in a modest, circulated condition, could be worth well into six figures today? You might be thinking, come on, John Tyler? Really? But yes, and here's where it gets wild. What you're seeing now is a coin from the 1840s in clear, circulated condition. It's rough, worn, the edges are softened from years of handling, and the details have faded like a ghost. But even like this little piece of history is tied to a mysterious and highly valuable chapter in U.S. coinage. Let's take a look. This coin is what numismatists believe to be a variant of the 1843 seated Liberty dime struck during Tyler's presidency, a coin with a well-documented but rarely seen no drapery error. That's right. In certain 1843 strikes, Liberty's dress was accidentally left incomplete, showing no drapery at her elbow. To the average person, it looks like a small design quirk. To serious collectors, it's a goldmine. Here's why. Only a few dozen examples of the 1843 no drapery seated Liberty dime are confirmed to exist. Most were heavily circulated like this one, but even in this worn condition, it's a five-figure coin. We're talking $12,000 to $25,000 for a circulated example, if it has the error. Now, let's say it doesn't have the drapery error, but it's an 1844 dime instead. Get ready for the real shocker, because that date, 1844, is known in the coin world as the infamous Little Orphan Annie dime. Why the name? Because it's absurdly rare. Only a handful are known to survive today. In 2007, an 1844 dime, heavily circulated, worn down just like the one you're seeing, sold at auction for $34,000. Not uncirculated, not flawless, just a plain old battle-scarred relic from the 1840s. But here comes the true monster. A pristine, uncirculated 1844 dime, certified by PCGS with strong strikes and clear lettering, was quietly sold in a private dealer transaction for a whopping $253,000, and to this day, collectors still hunt for it like it's treasure, because only a few dozen examples are believed to exist worldwide. But wait, there's more. In 2020, an 1843 dime with a double-die obverse, the letters and stars ghosted from a striking misalignment, was authenticated by NGC and dubbed a ghost date error. Experts had never seen another one like it, and at auction, that little silver dime pulled in $336,000. Let that settle in. A coin smaller than your thumb, worth over $300,000, struck during the presidency of a man most Americans barely remember. That's the magic of numismatics. It's not just about who's on the coin, it's about when, how, and what went wrong at the mint. So take a closer look at those seated Liberty dimes hiding in your collection, especially those from 1843. Moving on, and now we're leaping ahead in time to the year 2000. The Y2K panic had just fizzled, the internet was booming, and the US Mint had a bold new idea. Introduce a shiny new dollar coin to honor a woman who changed history, Sacagawea. But in that same year, something happened, something the Mint never intended. And it created one of the most shocking coin blunders in American history. This one, it's a 2000p Sacagawea dollar, and yes, it's in circulated condition. Scuffs, nicks, a bit of dirt worn into the creases of Sacagawea's portrait. You've probably handled one before, or at least thought you did. But here's the twist. Most people have no idea that in 2000, a catastrophic mistake at the Philadelphia Mint turned a small batch of coins into six-figure rarities. And to the legend, the 2000p Sacagawea Cheerios dollar. You see, before the official release of the new golden dollar, the U.S. Mint struck a limited number of Sacagawea coins with an enhanced eagle tail design, far more detailed than the final version. These prototype coins were quietly slipped into boxes of Cheerios cereal as a promotional stunt. Yes, Cheerios, a breakfast cereal giveaway, accidentally birthed one of the most valuable modern coins in American history. Now, the circulated one you're seeing here may or may not be one of those Cheerios strikes. The only way to know is to look closely, very closely, at the tail feathers of the eagle on the reverse. If it's the enhanced high detail version, even in worn circulated condition, you're looking at a $5,000 to $8,000 coin. But hold on. It gets way crazier. An uncirculated mint condition Cheerios dollar, that's a $40,000 to $75,000 coin today. And here's the bombshell. A pristine Cheerios dollar, still in its original plastic sleeve from the cereal box, with full provenance and authentication, sold for an eye-watering $144,000 at auction in 2020. But it doesn't stop there. There's an even rarer error that slipped through that same year, something no one noticed until years later. A small number of Sacagawea dollars were accidentally struck using state quarter planchets, the metal discs meant for quarters, not dollar coins. These came out visibly smaller, lighter, and had a color mismatch. Only a few are confirmed to exist. And when one was authenticated by PCGS in 2016, it sold for a staggering $223,000. That's right. A modern coin from the year 2000, found in cereal boxes and pocket change, now fetching well into six figures. And here's what's terrifying for collectors. Many people spent these coins without ever knowing what they had, because they didn't look different, unless you really knew. Finally, we return to the very beginning of it all, once again between 1789 and 1797. But this time, the condition? It's not just circulated. It's bad. Worn, corroded, almost unrecognizable. The details? Barely there. You'd look at this coin and think it was just an old, worthless hunk of metal. But what if I told you that this damaged little disc, this forgotten survivor from over 230 years ago, could be worth a staggering fortune? Because this isn't just any coin. This is one of the most mysterious and coveted pieces in American numismatic history. A coin connected directly to George Washington himself. A coin believed to be personally approved by him. It's called the 1792 Washington President Pattern Coin, and some numismatists call it the coin that never should have existed. Let's unravel the story. In the late 1780s, before the U.S. Mint was officially established, there was a fierce debate in Congress about whether the new nation should have its own coins, and who, if anyone, should be featured on them. Some private engravers didn't wait. They took it upon themselves to mint prototype coins, pattern strikes, with the image of George Washington front and center. Some featured his military bust, others used an elegant Roman-style profile. All of them bore the legend, Washington President, 1792. Now here's where it gets controversial. Washington himself was not a fan of his face being used on currency. He feared it would resemble monarchies, which America had just fought to escape. So, these coins? They were never officially authorized. That makes them incredibly rare. And some were melted down before ever being released. But somehow, a few examples escaped destruction. And the one you're seeing now? It's a bad condition survivor, darkened, flattened, pitted with age and time. Some of the lettering is illegible. The edge might be chipped. Most collectors would walk right past it and never even know what they'd seen. But here's the reality. Even in this condition, this tragic, time-worn state, one of these original Washington President pattern coins has fetched over $118,000. Now get this. In 2018, a heavily worn version, missing nearly all of Washington's facial details, scratched and dulled from decades of circulation, was authenticated by NGC. It was the only known surviving example of a Roman head pattern struck in copper with edge lettering. It stunned the auction house, it stunned collectors, and it sold for $348,000. Let that sink in. A coin Washington never wanted made, in terrible condition, sold for nearly $350,000. And then, in 2022, a silver-plated version of the same type, found in the attic of a Revolutionary War descendant in Virginia, yes, in a literal shoebox, was authenticated, restored, and sold in a private deal for a jaw-dropping $612,000.